Good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
Nice to see everyone this morning. Again, this sermon is being brought to you from the Church of God Seventh-day in headquarters in Salem, West Virginia. If you want any additional information, please contact us, and we'll be glad to put you on our mailing list. I haven't told you a story in quite some time, and I know that Dave sent me a little bit of a story. He sends over jokes every once in a while, so he sent me the story with regard to this man just by the name of Old Fred. You know, Old Fred had been a faithful member of the church, but he was very, very sick at this particular time, and the family had summoned the minister to come to the hospital and visit with Fred. So when the minister got there, they had gathered around and everything, and with that, Fred had motioned for a piece of paper and a pencil, and he writes a little bit of a message and hands it to the minister, and the minister dutifully takes the message and kind of sticks it in his pocket. So the minister said a little bit of a prayer, and not too long after that, old Fred expired. And of course they had his funeral just a couple of days later, and the minister realizes that he's wearing the same jacket that he had the other day when he was in the hospital. And he puts his hand in his pocket and he finds the note, and he says, this is a note from old Fred. He said he probably has something very inspirational for us. And he opens up the note, and the note says, "Please move a little bit to the left. You're standing on my oxygen supply." Oh. So much for notes, huh? Okay. All right. We're going to finish up with our series on the prophet Isaiah today. And again, remember, we're just kind of highlighting things. Okay. There's the Bible itself is just so chock full of some good things, and so all we can do is really highlight. Isaiah itself, the book of Isaiah, has, I think it's 66 chapters, I believe, and it's written in two divisions. The first division, from chapter 1 to 39, is what we call looking toward the captivities, because we know God promised them. He said, look, if you don't do what I want you to do, I'm going to disperse you. The other nations are going to come in here, and they are going to conquer you. They're going to carry you away. And so the prophet's job at that particular time was to write about that and remind the people, and this is what Isaiah was doing. And many of the other prophets, of course, were doing the same thing. And so from 1 to 39, it's looking, to or forward to the captivities. And of course, from 40 to 66, it's called looking beyond the captivities, and of course looking to the future, looking to the kingdom, looking to the reestablishment of the nation of Israel, again, which is prophetic. So in chapter 40, we're going to go right to 40. This is the break point, and probably most Bibles have some kind of a break point there. They have it in say part 1 and part 2. We're going to look at Isaiah 40, verses 6 through 8. And this is where the prophet himself talks about the greatness of God and man's weakness. In 6 it says, "The voice said, 'Cry,' and he said, 'What shall I cry? All flesh is grass, and all the goodliness thereof is as the flower of the field. The grass withereth, the flower fadeth, because the Spirit of the Lord bloweth upon it. Surely the people is grass. The grass withereth, the flower fadeth, but the word of our God shall stand forever.'" And if we go to 17, he says, and this is great to keep in mind for what we've been talking about, like current events, okay? In 17 it says, All nations before him are as nothing. They are counted to him less than nothing in vanity. To whom then will ye liken God? Or what likeness will ye compare unto him? And we have always said, you can't. There is nothing you can compare to God. And of course it goes on to say in 19, the workman melteth the graven image, and the goldsmith spreadeth it over with gold, and casteth silver chains. He that is so impoverished that he hath no oblation, chooseth a tree that will not rot. He seeketh unto him a cunning workman to prepare a graven image that shall not be moved. And it says, have ye not known? Have ye not heard? Hath it not been told you from the beginning? Hath ye not understood from the foundation of the earth? It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth. I mean, that puts to rest the people who used to argue about the earth is flat, right? But in 22, it is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in, that bringeth the princes to nothing, he maketh the judges of the earth as vanity. See, we have people throughout the world that think they're special, think they're really something, And what the Bible is trying to tell us is that all these people, nations, kings, presidents, judges, who have rulers, doesn't matter who they are going to be brought to nothing. They are impressed with their own importance. They think of themselves as being something. God is not impressed. And especially the people who are not his, or not trying to be like him, or not trying to be obedient to him, or rule the proper way, or live the proper way. Certainly not. And then, of course, if we go to 25 and 26, it says, to whom then will ye liken me, or shall I be equal, saith the Holy One? Of course, no one. There's no one. Lift up your eyes on high, and behold, who hath created these things that bringeth out their host by number? He calleth them all by names, by the greatness of his might, for that he is strong in power, not one faileth. Okay? So here we have, I remember a couple weeks ago I told you, Judy and I talk about like creation a lot, different things. We're awestruck. You watch some of these programs, whether it's a nature program or a science program, or some of the things that give you some insight into our Earth or cosmos, or whatever it is. It's just staggering, the creation of God. It really is. And I think I mentioned to you that there was this program on frogs, and the guy saying there's something like 5,000 species of frogs. It's just incredible. When you look at the images that the Hubble telescope is able to send back to Earth, it's just beyond our comprehension or imagination. And this is what we know. And our knowledge is so limited. It's mind-boggling to think how much more they can be. And we are so limited in our thinking. I mean, we think in terms of height and width and depth and things like that, three-dimensional things. And yet there's so much more to God. And that's what he's basically trying to tell us here. It's like, probably, I can't remember the scripture exactly, but it talks about the fact that, we almost like the most intelligent person on earth is still so far below God in a sense. I mean, that's what he's trying to tell us. We haven't got any idea, how creative he is, how extensive he is, how eternal he is. And that's very difficult for us to wrap our head around, because we're limited. We're limited all the time. And of course in 27 says, "Why sayest thou, O Jacob, and speaketh, O Israel, my way is hid from the Lord, and my judgment is passed over from my God? Hast thou not known, hast thou not heard, that the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, fainteth not, neither is weary. There is no searching of his understanding." And this is what we're saying. "He giveth power to the faint, and to them that have no might he increaseth strength. Even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." So this is what waiting on the Lord is going to do for us. But we have to always be mindful of that. Now, if we go to Isaiah 53, and I know this is a little bit of a repetition for us. We're not going to read the whole thing. Because last week we read it, we studied it. It was part of our lesson, our Sabbath school lesson. And we covered it again today a little bit. But Isaiah 53 introduces us to the suffering servant. And as Pat pointed out during our lesson today, the idea that Jesus was very, he was just a common, ordinary Jew of his day. There was nothing, he didn't have what we would call, Hollywood good looks. He wasn't 7 feet tall. He wasn't, 4'2", or he was just an average person. There was nothing about him that stood out other than his wisdom, really, in a sense. But there are many instances, I don't know if I could put a number to it, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't know. It talks about the fact that he was able to slip away through the crowd. That, he knew people were coming after him, whatever. He just simply slip away in that crowd and be gone. They wouldn't find him. And as Pat pointed out, and we've talked about over the years, Judas had to betray him with a kiss. They didn't know who he was. And so basically it was Judas goes up, he kisses him on the cheek, he identifies Christ for the authorities, so they're able to take him. And that's how uncommon he was. I mean, how, just how common he was, and, didn't stand out to anybody else. And I guess in one sense didn't make maybe a physical impression as much as he made a maybe spiritual impression on people. Because there were a lot of people that listened to his sermons and were moved by his sermons. And of course there were people who were healed by Jesus. And, they certainly would have known him. But he just kind of blended in with the rest of the folks. So the one thing about him, though, was you can hold your finger there and turn with me to Luke 2:52. And this is really it kind of referring to his early years in a sense. And we're not going to read this whole thing. But in 2:52, this was the story where he leaves his parents at the Passover. He was 12 years old. He goes and he speaks with the older men. And of course they find him in verse 52. This is Luke 2:52. It says, "And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man." So we know that he was intelligent. But he was intelligent, he had God's intelligence. He had God's wisdom. And of course we know that he has God's Spirit. We go back and we look at the sevenfold Spirit. Jesus is full of sevenfold Spirit. So he has that wisdom and knowledge and understanding and everything else. And so this is the kind of person he was, and this is the kind of person, that we want to be. Back to Isaiah 53. I think the big thing to take away from Isaiah 53, and I do recommend that you read it all the time, several verses of Isaiah 53 are prophetic, and Jesus hits all the buttons. That's a big thing. When you read Isaiah, especially 53, you will see that when Christ comes along, he fulfills some of those, prophecies he fulfills all the prophecies of the prophecies that, Isaiah wrote down, some of the other prophets wrote down. So he hits those key buttons, and so when he shows up on the scene, people know that he's the Messiah. He's the one that they've been waiting for. He's the one that they've, wanted, okay, looking forward to. When we go to Isaiah 57, we're going to receive some instructions. In 15, it talks about, "For thus saith the high and lofty one that inhabiteth eternity, whose name is holy, I dwell in the high and holy place with him also that is of a contrite and humble spirit, to revive the spirit of the humble and to revive the heart of the contrite ones." And if you look in some of the Proverbs and some of these Psalms, you'll find out that that's the kind of person that God wants. A humble person, a contrite person. That's the kind of person we need to be. Okay. 16. "For I will not contend forever, neither will I be always wroth. For the spirit should fail before me in the souls which I have made. For the iniquity of his covetousness was I wroth, and smote him. I hid me, and was wroth. And he went out frowardly in the way of his heart. I have seen his ways, and will heal him. I will lead him also, and restore comforts unto him, and to his mourners. I create the fruit of the lips. Peace, peace to him that is far off, and to him that is near, saith the Lord. I will heal him. But the wicked are like the troubled sea, when it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. There is no peace, saith my God, to the wicked." Okay? So even though we think that they're, everything's going well for them, it's not true. It's not going to end up that way. No peace for the wicked. Okay? No peace for the wicked. And then, of course, we look at some of the prophecies for the future. We're going to look at 66. We're going to go right to the end of the book. Now this is talking about the kingdom. It's talking about the future. It's talking about the restoration. And I try to point this out sometimes, especially when you have people that think it's okay to eat the unclean food. It doesn't matter. They say Christ cleansed all things. But if we go here, this chapter is about the kingdom. 66:15. says, "For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to rend his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many." And of course then, 17 is the key verse. "They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the garden behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination and the mouse, shall" what? "Shall live?" No, it says, "shall be consumed together, saith the Lord." People are not destroyed if they're doing what the Lord wants. He doesn't destroy them. It's just like the plagues coming on his children. The 7 last plagues are not going to come on his children. Now, I've never said that we wouldn't go through some kind of tribulation or persecution or anything like that. I've never said that. But as far as the 7 last plagues won't come on his children. It says it comes on the children of disobedience. If we're trying to do what the Lord wants, then he's going to keep us from that. It says he's going to keep us from the wrath to come. The wrath to come is the 7 last plagues. Okay, and then if we continue, I think this kind of the verse that you were referring to before, Rex, it says in 18 and 19, "For I know their works and their thoughts. It shall come that I will gather all nations and tongues, and they shall come and see my glory. And I will set a sign among them, and I will send those that escape of them unto the nations, to Tarshish, Pul, and Lud, that draw the bow, to Tubal and Javan, to the isles afar off, that have not heard my fame, neither have seen my glory. And they shall declare my glory among the Gentiles. And they shall bring all your brethren for an offering unto the Lord out of the nations upon horses and in chariots, and in litters and upon mules and upon swift beasts, to my holy mountain Jerusalem, saith the Lord, as the children of Israel bring an offering in a clean vessel into the house of the Lord. And I will also take of them for priests and for Levites, saith the Lord. For as the new heavens and the new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, saith the Lord, so shall your seed and your name remain. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord. And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me. For their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorring unto all flesh. So that's the future. That's what we're going to see in the future for, a short period of time. Later on in Revelation, it talks about, behold, I make everything new. We're going to see that at I would say, the latter part of the millennium, in a sense. You've got the 1,000-year reign. There are things that are going to be going on during the earth, during that reign. Remember, Satan is still around, although he's chained. What happens at the end of the millennium? At the end of the 1,000 years, he is loosed for a short season, right? And then, of course, he has an opportunity to tempt those that will pay attention to him. He brings the army around the what is it here? Let me go. Let's read the verse. We'll go to Revelation. Revelation 20 and verse 7, right? It says, and when the 1,000 years are expired, so that the 1,000 years they're talking about is the millennium. So when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to do battle, as the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. So this is a large number, very large number, multitude. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about. So this would be, it says, in the beloved city. So this would be like the New Jerusalem. And fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. So there is no battle. They gather for battle. They're getting ready to battle. But what happens? A fire comes down from God out of heaven and just destroys it. Okay? And of course, and then the devil himself that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. And again, that's till like what we would call the end of time, not eternity. And of course, if you go back in Isaiah and Ezekiel, it talks about the fact that Satan himself is going to be destroyed. He'll be brought to ashes, so he will be consumed himself. Okay? All right, that completes our study of Isaiah. Next time we'll get into a brand new subject. If everybody would stand.